Represent. Okay. Good Erev Shabbos, everybody. Welcome back once again to the weekly shir in Pirkei Avos. Rabbi Gershon Avtzner, Cincinnati, Ohio. Today is a very special shir because it's the grand finale of the limud of Pirkei Avos this year, Tavshin Pei Hey. We went through 4 cycles of Pirkei Avos, 3 cycles of 1 perek, and 1 cycle of 2 prakim a week. This week we are going to be learning prakim Hey and Vav. We are going to be learning together, Mitzvah Hashem, a Mishnah in Perek Hey, but on Shabbos we're going to be learning prakim Hey and Vav. I do want to issue a little bit of an apology for last week. I had a shir prepared, and I wanted to record it and send it out, but unfortunately something came up, I guess Bashkocha Pratis, and I could not get it done. But we don't go backwards, only forwards, and we are preparing for Rosh Hashanah, an Aksivach Simatoiva, and being that this is the grand finale, the end of our limud for this year, so we are going to try to learn a Mishnah which really brings out the bottom line of what we're trying to accomplish in Pirkei Avos. We've said many times, the Gemara tells us that anyone that wants to be a chassid should learn Pirkei Avos, and a chassid is obviously somebody that works on himself, lifnim mishuras hadin, especially his midos, working on their midas toives, and we are going to be learning a Mishnah, Pirkei Mishnah Yud Aleph, which identifies the characteristics of a chassid. The Mishnah tells us, and we're going to be getting more involved. Let's just learn the Mishnah itself. Arba midos b'deos. There are 4 types. There are 4 midos in personalities. When it comes to the midah of anger, which it's important that we understand the depth of the midah of anger. Anger is really, really one of the worst midos that there is. The Abarbanel writes, and it's very, very important that we know this. The Abarbanel writes that while every Avera makes a stain on the neshama, the anger, someone getting angry, actually removes the neshama. He says that when a yid is angry, his nefesh elekis leaves his body, and it's replaced by a nefesh hatmeya. Now, not all the Mefarshim say this, but even the fact that it could be said, and obviously there's room to say such a thing, brings out the danger of anger. Anger is something which opens up the channels for all Averis, because anger by definition means that I'm not in control. Somebody that loses control loses himself. And that opens up the gateways and the pathways and the doorways, and for any terrible involvement, the Yetzer Hara has a wide open door when you lose control of yourself. There's no borders and there's no limitations. A person that lost self-control, which is expressed by the midah of kas, the midah of anger, is an open book for the Yetzer Hara. And I want to share with you something that many may not be aware of, to bring out the danger of anger. There is a very important kuntris, which unfortunately does not get enough attention as it deserves. And that is called Klali Chinuch V'Hadracha. When the Rebbe Rashab started the yeshiva Tomchei Tmimim in Lubavitch, he put his son, the Frierdiker Rebbe, to be the Menal Poel. Now, everybody knows that when you buy a new device, anything that you buy, it comes with a manual, comes with instructions of how to best use this new device that you bought, a new appliance, whatever it is. So when it came to opening up a new yeshiva, Yeshivas Tomchei Tmimim, which was the first Lubavitch yeshiva, so the Frierdiker Rebbe wanted his father to explain to him, so how do you want the chinuch to actually look like in this yeshiva? And they had many discussions about chinuch and hadracha, and the Frierdiker Rebbe had to write it up. And he had a few versions because the Rebbe Rashab was not happy with the first draft and the second draft until he came out with a kuntris. It's called Klali Chinuch V'Hadracha, the rules and fundamentals of education. And it's not a very long kuntris. I think it's 17 or 18 chapters. And it lays down the foundations of how to educate. I can tell you that probably most of the issues that we have in chinuch is because the mechanchim are not fluent and they don't constantly review the klali chinuch v'hadracha. It says that a shoichet, so to speak, the manual for shchita is a sefer called the Simcha Chadasha. And it says a shoichet is supposed to review it every 30 days to always be fresh. You're shechting for Klal Yisrael, you always have to be fresh with the halachis. In a certain sense, Klali Chinuch V'Hadracha should be on constant review. But that's not for now. But in Klali Chinuch V'Hadracha, the Frierdiker Rebbe lay in chapter 16. His point in that chapter is that each of the midos that the mechanech has to work on he has to measure out one against the other. And you have to deal with the worst one first. You have to know that mechanech, everything has to be methodical with the system. You can't attack and you can't build up if you don't have a method. You have to first identify what are the things that have to be fixed, what are the midos, and then plan out how to elevate and how to better this Talmud. And there has to be a seder adifus. There has to be an order of precedence of what midah has to be dealt with first. And he says, I will ask you a question and we'll see and he gives an example. He says, what happens if you have a student that has two issues? One is that he's a megazem v'shakron. He's somebody that likes to exaggerate and to tell lies. He has no control over his mouth. He's always creating stories, which is a terrible midah, to be megazem v'shakron. But he also has a midah of kaisan v'raschon. He gets upset very quickly. So if you're the mechanich and you ask someone, I have two midos, I can't work on kas and sheker. This Talmud has two midos that need betterment. Should I work on the kas or should I work on the sheker? Now, I've asked this question to many people, and I've asked them, what would you pick? In many cases, the people answer that sheker is worse because he's telling a lie, like that's against the Torah, like you're telling a lie. At the end of the day, anger is just a passion. It's not telling a lie. But the Frierdiker Rebbe writes in this context, Klali Chinuch V'Hadracha, that you have to start with the chisaron haresicha. You have to start with this anger management. That's the first thing. Why? Because anger could lead to averis, which cause sickness until ibud haguf v'hanefesh sheyoytze midaite rachman litzlan. It could lead to someone losing their mind. Anger makes you ois mensch, and it creates certain illnesses, whether it's other things that you just get all worked up. And it's pashit, self-destructive, says the Frierdiker Rebbe. And therefore, even though obviously lying and exaggerating is not a good midah at all, it's terrible. Anger is worse because you pashit, self-destruct with anger. It's something to think about. So we're talking about the midah of kas. And the Mishnah tells us about four different types of personalities. One is somebody that angers quickly, but he sort of lets it go quickly. Then there's somebody that takes a long time to get him angry. But when he gets angry, it takes a long time for him to be appeased. Then there's somebody that takes a long time to get angry and very little time. He appeases quickly. And then there's somebody, and that person's the chassid. And then there's somebody that is very quickly, he gets upset, and it takes a long time to appease such a person. Such a person is called a rasha. This is what the Mishnah tells us. So the chassid gets angry very, very, very rarely, and he quickly appeases himself. And the rasha is somebody that gets anger very quickly, and it takes a long time to get over his anger. Now, when I learned the Mishnah, the first question that came to my mind is, why is this person a rasha? Meaning the person has a bad midah. He didn't do anything. Why is he called a rasha? That was the question that, I was going through the Perek trying to pick a Mishnah, and this stuck out. And we're going to address this question. But before we address it, I want everyone to remember and to take one of the big takeaways from today's shir is going to be the following point. And that is that seemingly the entire Mishnah is not fear. Why? Because we're talking about midos that a person was created. A person, it's his teva, it's his nature. And why should he be blamed? Why should he be called a rasha, for whatever reason that we're soon going to explain, based on the nature that Hashem gave him? This is his nature. This guy is an easygoing nature, and this guy gets upset very quickly. That's not something that he brought onto himself. It's something he was born with. It's a challenge that he has to deal with. But because it was, so to speak, given to him by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, why bechlal do we categorize chassid, rasha? Does that mean Hashem made him a chassid? Hashem made him a rasha? And this is especially, by the way, in the way the Rebbe teaches this Mishnah, by one Farbrengen. The Rebbe says that if this Mishnah is Pirkei Avos, we're not even talking about somebody that actually gets upset and angry, because then it wouldn't be in Pirkei Avos. We don't need Pirkei Avos for the shoyim. The people actually behave properly. We're talking about their inborn, their nature that they have inside of them. So it's not even a practical oistruk, didn't actually get upset, the poil. It's more about his natural disposition. And if so, why is it that the person is blamed? He's called a rasha. Forget about what rishus did he do, but why are we having this discussion about natural behavior? And the answer is very, very simple. And the Maram Shik, the Mefarshim say that this is exactly the point of the Mishnah. Before we get into the nuances of the different types of people, the main takeaway from the Mishnah is that that's not an excuse in Avodas Hashem. That itself, the whole question, is the main takeaway from the Mishnah. The main takeaway from the Mishnah is that a person is not excused because that's the way I was born. That's my natural teva. Because you were given that teva, but that's your avodah to change and work and channel your teva. There is a famous Hayoim Yoim in the month of Kislev, and it says like this: Yesoid Ikri B'Shitas Chabad, one of the main foundations of Chabad Chasidis, Asher Amoyach Hashalet Alalev Bitul Dosei, that every single person was given the power by the Eibishter for the mind to control the heart. The mind controlling the heart is not the avodah of a tzaddik. It's not the avodah of the rear people, the rear species of people that their mind could control their heart. Moyach shalet al alev is demanded, expected, and obligated from every single person. We have the ability. Hashem gave us our moyach to be shalet al alev. And therefore, the answer that that's the way I was born is not an answer. That's exactly the point of the Mishnah. And it's not just about kas. We're focusing on kas because it's like the channel to all evil. But that's true with any of the midos that a person has. There is no excuse that I'm acting inappropriate because that is my natural disposition. If that's your natural disposition, that means you have the ability to deal with it. And that's just the way it is. And I know it's harsh because people say, well, they were born that way. They have those natural inclinations. No one's saying that it's easy. No one's saying that it doesn't demand work. No one's saying that it's something that comes like naturally. But that's at the bottom line, the end of the day, it's unacceptable. The same way in court. If someone's going to say that I robbed the store because I am naturally a kleptomaniac, I happen to be noited to stealing. It's a way. I have this taiva to steal. I'm born with this desire to steal. Kleptomania is a real thing. The judge is not going to say, okay, I'm sorry for that. You're excused. You're not excused. We'll deal with it. Go to a therapist. Figure out how to deal with it. You can't step over the rules because that's the way you feel. That's the way you feel naturally. That's not an excusable act. The same thing is with any of our midos, anger, anything. Just because you are naturally get irked and get nervous and anger comes quicker, deal with it. Deal with it. I hope that's clear because that's really the main takeaway from Pirkei Avos, that there's nothing that we can't control with our moyach shalat al alev. That's a main focus of a chassid, is Yisoid Iker B'Shitas Chabad. The main focus of a chassid is that moyach shalat al halev. Now, let's now get into the actual technicalities of the Mishnah. Now, what exactly is, sometimes how many times you've read this Mishnah, and now it's time to actually think about what the Mishnah means. So the Mishnah tells us that noyach lichois v'noyach ratzois yotza schorei bevseidoi. Someone that's easily angered and somebody that's easily, he gives in and he recovers easily, the reward is lost in its loss, in the hefsid. What does that actually mean? What does it mean? Yotza schorei bevseidoi. What reward, what loss, what does it mean that the reward is overridden by the loss? What exactly does that mean? So the Bartanura tells us, and again, this is not going to be the main focus of this year, but when we're learning a Mishnah, it's important to actually know the pshat in the entire Mishnah. The Bartanura says that this is a very, very practical application. We're not talking about spiritual schar, behefsid, sometimes we have caught in Olam Haba and Gan Eden. We're talking about practical life. And that means like this. There is a benefit, the fact that you give in after you get angry. But if you're easily angered, you're never in the right frame of mind to make level-headed decisions. Why? Because his lashon is sheroiv maisav milkulkolin me'achashu noach lichos al kol dover v'dover. If he gets nervous and angry about everything, most of his actions are going to be made without level-headed mindfulness. Can you imagine somebody that's often not in the right frame of mind? What type of decisions, what type of lifestyle is this person going to lead? He's never going to be sociable properly. He's never going to be successful in business. A person he's going to always be quitting his job. Just try to imagine, even if he regrets it later and he gives in. Who wants to hang out with somebody? Who wants to do business with somebody? Who wants to marry somebody? Who wants to live with somebody? That's always irritable. He's always getting upset. He's always nervous. And then, okay, he gives in, but you're always on eggshells with this person. This person's always, what type of decision is this person making? Can you trust this person's decision process? Can you trust this person's shikul hadas when his das is not normal? This person's das is literally messed up. He's always upset. So therefore, his mind is never, ever focused and level-headed. Such a person, he does have a schar, the fact that he does let go. But at the end of the day, yotza schorei befsedoi, that little nice thing about him, the overall type of a person is like stay away. You just don't want to deal with such a person. Then you have the other person. The other person is kasha lichos v'kasha lirotzos. This person is somebody that it takes a long time to get him angry. This person that takes a long time to get angry means that most of the time he is level-headed. He's moyach shalit ala leiv. He's somebody that in general is in control of himself. And generally, if he gets angry, it's because the person really, really overstepped their bounds, because he's naturally passive. He's naturally patient. He's naturally in the right mental disposition. The only thing is that once he does get angry, is kasha lirotzos. Now, I want to tell you something, which to me was very, very novel when I read it in the Medrash Shmuel. The Medrash Shmuel says that most people translate the Mishnah that kasha lirotzos means that it's hard for him to get over it. He says then the right word would be lihirotzos, to be persuaded to let go. He says the actual types of the word kasha lirotzos means we're talking about, does he go over to the person that angered him to deal with it? Meaning there's, on one hand, he could let it go inside, but he's not going to take an active step to actually calm down the other person. He's not going to be, reaching out to the other person. Kasha lirotzos means that he let go of his anger, but it's hard for him to actually go over to the person and help that person deal with his issues. That person, because chances are, the person that got you angry has issues. And I always say this story. This is a true story that happened with me. It opened my eyes to chinuch. Changed, really. One line from a 15-year-old changed my whole perspective on chinuch many years ago. I was one summer, 2004, Tavshin Samach Dalet. I was a learning director in a Yeshivas Kayetz program. We went to Russia, Ukraine, the Kfarim of the Rabbeim. And there was a certain bocher there that was very difficult. So even though my main job was learning director, meant that there were learning teachers and they had students and I was on top. The kids that really, really were difficult for the learning teachers, I made my own class. A few kids, so I was there, became their teacher, so that the other classes could actually run and function. So I had the real difficult kids and the learning director. So I gave them more breaks and I programmed, whatever, dealt with them, spoke with them. Then there was one kid that it was so difficult. I said, you know what? I'm going to sort of bribe this kid. Now, in Russia and Ukraine, there was no pizza stores. But I got from the thing frozen pizza. I made this kid pizza and I gave him, I said, we're going to start the class with pizza. Like, I really thought that would get the kid excited, involved. The kid in front of me takes the pizza and he throws it on the floor. Now, that was like crazy. So I look at this kid. I said, you are very difficult to deal with. Like, I can't believe it. I'm your learning director. I don't have to do anything for you. And I'm giving you pizza and we're having a class, and you throw it on the floor. I said, you're very difficult to deal with. He looks at me straight in the face and he says, I know. I deal with myself the entire day. And I was like, wow, how profound is that statement? I'm dealing with him for 2 hours and I'm going crazy. But what's going on in his life? He knows because he's dealing with himself the entire day. I was like, wow. The kid that's causing you trouble is troubled. So a real chacham, a real chassid, a real chacham knows that if that guy got you angry, it's because he has issues, she has issues. And a real chassid not only forgives and doesn't let himself get angry, tries to think, how can I help that person deal with their issues? There's a reason why that person is aggravating other people. What's that person going through? So all this person is doing is, according to the Medrash Shmuel, which is deeply profound, that he's kosher lirotzos. He easily forgives, but he has a hard time offering his services to help the other person deal with their issues. Now that's a novel shot. It's amazing, but it's novel. But even if we take it at face value, that we're talking about letting go internally, it's still, at the end of the day, Yotze Hefseidoi B'schorei. This person, he may hold a grudge, and it's not good. But the fact that B'derech Klal, he's level-headed, he's a person that you would like to deal with. At the end of the day, better that, because most of the time, 90% of the time, he's not upset. He's a reasonable person. Then you have our chassid. The chassid is kosher lichos. He is very difficult to get upset. V'noyach lirotzos. He easily either forgives, or like the other pshat, he not only does he forgive, he helps the other person deal with their issues. Such a person is a chassid. Now I want to point out, it's important, the following line. The Tosfos Yom Tov says this line, and everyone should think about it. Avos shelo yichos klal lo nimtza b'shum deya. He says, seemingly, the Mishnah should have told us that a chassid doesn't get angry at all. In other words, we said there's 4 types of people. Really there should be 5. The 5th one is somebody that doesn't get angry at all. Not easy, lay hard, easy. Doesn't get angry. So says the Tosfos Yom Tov that Hashem doesn't expect us to be a malach. Hashem knows that there are times when we're going to get upset. The shaila is how we deal with it. In other words, we should all be kosher lichos. There are times, and sometimes even al pi Torah you get upset, but I'm talking about even ben adam mechaveiroi, to say that even in Pirkei Avos, you're expected shelo yichos klal. That's a level of a tzaddik. That's a level that's beyond the regular level of even a chassid. A chassid aspires to get angry as least as possible for as little time as possible. But shelo yichos klal, that he shouldn't have any anger at all, that is the Mefarshim say, Zeh b'shvil malach, that's for angels. It's not for human beings. Human beings get upset. The question is how we deal with it. In life, I always say, I tell my Talmidim all the time, you are going to get punished and judged more for your reaction than your action. I tell them, let's say you speed, got a ticket, you ran through a red light, you got a ticket. The policeman gives you a ticket. A rational person will get upset, but he knows that he did something wrong. So he doesn't get upset at the police. The police is doing his job. Get upset at yourself. Get upset you got caught. But the police didn't do anything wrong. And if you're respectful to the police, you get your ticket, you pay it, or you might even make it a warning or might forgive it. But if you're going to start yelling at the policeman for giving you a ticket, you can get a double fine. The reaction is worse than the action. How you deal with situations, how you react, is more judgmental of a person's metzias than even his original action. So not getting upset at all is very, very difficult. That's not what we expect. We expect it should be kosher, but we want to see when you get upset, how do you react? Because we know Adam Nida, and a person is judged by his kaisa, when he's upset. If you learn to forgive, to let go, and especially as we get closer to Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, any anger, any grudges, any past history, just let it go. Let it go. It should be noyach l'ratzos. Just let it go. Let it go. Why is the other person living rent-free in your brain? Why are you letting that person cause you to be angry, bitter, and upset? You're losing. Let it go. Let it go. So a chassid, let's go. Then there is the 4th category. The fourth category is somebody that is easily irritable. He's noyach lichos. He gets upset very easy. Vikosha, and it's very hard for him to let go. Such a person is a Rasha. And now we go back to the original question. Why is this person a Rasha? What did he do wrong? So the Tiferes Yisrael, one of the main mefarshim on the Pirkei Avos, he says the words, Nachen hu adam kazeh l'arshia neged Hashem u'bnei adam. The Tana doesn't mean that right now he's a Rasha. The Tana means that he is in the mode of becoming a Rasha. A person that doesn't control his anger and lets anger fester is inevitably going to end up doing averes and getting into fights with people. It's just going to happen. Even if it didn't happen yet, it's going to happen. The person is now primed to be a Rasha. He's not an actual Rasha. He's primed to be a Rasha. He's nothing. He's in the mode of becoming a Rasha. That's how he teaches it. However, other Mefarshim say that no, we're not talking about somebody that's primed to be a Rasha. There's a Gemara in Nedarim. The Gemara in Nedarim says, Omer Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman says, Kol Adam HaKoyes, a person that easily angers, B'yadua she'an v'noisav mirubin. You know that he has Averis. Averis triggers anger because you're no longer... Averis means that you don't have self-control. The Yetzer Hara is in charge. And therefore, the more Averis you do, the easily angered you could become. So the Gemara tells us, according to one of the holy Amaroi, that if a person gets angry, it's not that he's just primed to be a Rasha. That means he already did Averis, which already makes him a Rasha. A person that angers, 99% of the time, the person is a Baal Machloikis. We know from Dasan and Aviram, when they came time for them to be eaten up by the ground, times of Korach, the ground opens up to eat the Rishoyim, Korach, Va'adosai and his gang, and Dasan and Aviram. The Torah tells us that Moshe told everybody he bodlu to stay away from these Rishoyim, the Rishoyim of Dasan and Aviram. Why were they Rishoyim? The Medrash Rabbah tells us because they are Baalei Machloikis. They're always making Machloikis. A Baal Machloikis is a Rasha. A Baal Machloikis is a Rasha. So therefore, obviously, somebody that is always angry, always irritable, always nervous, always upset, inevitably this person comes to shul, every shachris is 10 machloikis, and he's upset. He didn't get mafter, he didn't get this, he did this one in the place, this one. You can only imagine what type of friction this person has around him 24/7. He ends up being a tremendous Baal machloikis. And this goes even deeper. Why? Because the Gemara tells us, the famous Gemara in Shabbos, Kofeyam and Beis, the Gemara tells us, Kol HaKoyes, anyone that gets angry, Kilu Oivid Avodah Zarah, that this person is like he serves Avodah Zarah. Why is this person like he serves Avodah Zarah? I mean, what does anger have to do with Avodah Zarah? So we know what it's explained in Sifrei Chasidus, that Avodah Zarah doesn't just mean that I serve an idol. I take an idol and I worship that idol. Avodah Zarah means that there is another existence besides Hashem, or in other words, that Hashem is not in charge of every detail of the creation and every detail of my life. What does that have to do with anger? Anger is very simple. Anger means that something didn't go right. Because it didn't go right, I got upset. That's the way it works. Something happens, I get upset. Why? Because something didn't go right. How are you allowed to say that something didn't go right if Hashem is running the world? If Hashem is running the world, it's impossible to say that it didn't go right. Hashem does everything right. Now, obviously, it's easy to say and give a lecture and a shir. Much more difficult when you're living through a very difficult situation. And every single person has their own pekel. And chas v'sholem, I'm not judging anybody. And no one should have any tzoris, ruchnias, gashmias, nafshias. Yidden should have miyodei amlea psucha kedosha verchova, in all ways, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, push it in every aspect of everyone's life. Yidden, every single Yid should be gebenched. But I'm talking about if someone is going through something, at the end of the day, anger means something didn't go right. Anger means, in other words, that Hashem is not in charge, that Hashem made a mistake. Hashem was not in control because something didn't happen right. You don't get angry when things happen the way they should go. So kol hakoyes, anyone that gets angry, in essence, is like they're oived avodah zarah. They're denying that Hashem runs the world. They're denying, they're going against the fact that Hashem runs the world in a good way, that everything comes from Hashem, that everything that Hashem does is good. And therefore, it's ki'ilu oived avodah zarah. Now, such a person, obviously, is a Rasha. Oived avodah zarah, he's for sure on the level of Pirkei Avos, this person is a Rasha. And some Mefarshim add a nuance. And they say that, and that's also very connected to the tshuva of Elul, that this Mishnah is really also emphasizing two different ways of tshuva. There are certain types of people, noyach lichois means that they get angry, means they do averis, and lirotzis means they do tshuva. There's people every day, they're doing averis, they're doing tshuva. Echta v'ashu. Hashem doesn't like such tshuva because it's only temporary, because in 10 minutes you can do avera again. Someone that's his errandskeit about his averis are quick in, back and forth, that's not real tshuva. That's not dealing with real situations. So even if you're kasha lichais, even if it takes you a long time to do an avera, and even a long time to do tshuva, but when you do tshuva, that when you finally do tshuva, you actually do it for real. You let it go, which I want to share with you an amazing word I heard from one of the Gerer Rebbes. He says, in davening, we tell the Eibishter that we want to do tshuva. And we tell the Eibishter, V'achzireinu b'seshuva shleima lefanecha. Please return us to you with the complete tshuva. And then we say, Baruch atah Hashem. Thank you. Blessed of you, Hashem. Haroitze b'shuva. The one that Shiveinu avinu sarasecha, v'karveinu mokeinu l'avdesecha, v'achzireinu b'seshuva shleima lefanecha, Baruch atah Hashem. Haroitze b'shuva. Why don't we say Haroitze b'shuva shleima? We just said Achzireinu b'seshuva shleima. Give us tshuva shleima. Baruch atah Hashem. Haroitze b'seshuva shleima. So the Gerer Rebbe says Hashem doesn't need tshuva shleima from a yid. Hashem just wants tshuva, even if it's not full-hearted. But if Haroitze b'shuva, Hashem just wants you to return to Him, even if it's not fully complete, even if you didn't deal with all your issues. Imagine a son or a daughter that for some reason ran away from home and they upset at the parents. The parents tell them, just come home. Just come. Haroitze b'shuva. We'll deal with all your issues later. Please come home. Haroitze b'seshuva. It doesn't have to be shleima. It doesn't have to be complete. And that's why Hashem says, even if it's kasha lirat, even if the tshuva takes a while and it's not complete, I'm ready to accept. And this is very, very, very much connected to our avodah to bring Mashiach. Bringing Mashiach demands a lot of moyach shalit al alev, because bringing Mashiach is connected so much to Avos Yisrael. Now the Rebbe teaches us a whole new way that we could control our moyach shalit al alev, and that is to realize that Mashiach is ready to come. And we want to start living now a lifestyle that's fitting for the time of Mashiach. If somebody knows that at any moment Mashiach is going to come, and at that point Yidden is not going to be like kina, like sachrus, no jealousy, no competition, no fighting between Yidden. When a person really, really internalizes that this is the time of living with Mashiach, then istakel b'shloisha dvarim, you start living with the shloisha dvarim, the geula shlishis, ein ata bo lidei aveda. You don't come to do any avedas. This is the time where you elevate yourself to the Shabbos mode. The moment you put on your Shabbos clothes, you don't play in the sand anymore because I'm wearing Shabbos clothes. The moment you dress for a king, automatically you don't play in the dirt and the mud. The moment we're focused on Mashiach and Geula, we have no room. We no longer allow ourselves to deal with the mud of machlokes. So I beg each and every one of you and every one of us, if one thing we could take from all this learning of Pirkei Avos, to work on our midos, to elevate ourselves to the Mashiach, put on our Mashiach clothes, our Shabbos suits, our Shabbos dresses, and automatically we don't play in the mud. And I want to wish every single person Ksivach Simatoiva, Lashona Toiva Masuka, Begashmias, Beruchnias, Gam Yochad, Zolzenzach mit den Reben, Uigalenu, Chibitaka, take it from Yad Mamish. I'd just like to point out, and I'll send out an email as well, and I finish always the series with this, that I never ask for any payment, Baruch Hashem, from any of the shiurim, but before Rosh Hashanah to give special tzedakah, I'll send out a link to my sisters on Shlichus in Texas. If you can give some tzedakah, because they can really use it. A small city with not a lot of Yidden, but with a lot of neshama, and they could get tremendous help. Again, everyone, Ksivach Simatoiva, Lashona Toiva Masuka.
Thank you.
Amen.
If there's any questions, now's the time to ask. And if not, let me tell you, the Pirkei Avos year comes back quicker than you think. And again, my bubbies, I'll have an alichtik gezunte yor, bubby. Should be able to have a new year. Tavshin Pei Vav, the Pirkei Avos, but the whole sturim, bubby.
Thank you. Will you put up the link?
Mirza Hashem in the, you know what? I'll put up the link here. Do we have the chat?
I mean,
I'll send out a link. I'll send out the link with the email.
The link to the tzedakah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for everything. And I could bench you.